Well, Mr. Martin O'Mulley for a topical question.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, ADDNI is a wonderful children's charity based, as it happens, in South Belfast, doing wonderful work with children with ADHD. I know the issue of their financial difficulties has been raised with the Minister. They're facing some choppy waters, turbulent times ahead. I was wondering, had the Minister given any thought to perhaps meeting ADDNI to discuss their difficulties?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm glad that the member has raised this because it gives me an opportunity. He may have been not expected to get to his question, but I'm glad that he was able to raise it nonetheless. In respect of the particular question around meeting, I have committed to, and it's in the diary already, to meet with NICFA as an umbrella organisation for the community and voluntary sector, many of whom are affected by the issue that the member has particularly raised. And the member is raising an issue which evolves around something which has been described as core funding. And this is core funding, Deputy Speaker, which goes to 67 organisations across Northern Ireland. So obviously, whenever, and you would expect this in the current climate, every spending line is being looked at right across the board, and every department should be doing that, but certainly mine is, given the pressures that it faces. Those 67 organisations are receiving a considerable, many millions of grants each and every year. It is 67 and not 68, and there's no potential to grow it from 68 or 69, so it is exclusively for 67. That in itself raises some issues for me around procurement, around state aid, around equity and fairness. So there are issues in that respect. What I've also discovered from looking into this issue, which by the way has been an issue that has been around for some time, previous ministers in my post have signalled to the sector that reform will be happening to this core funding, but that they have been considering how that might be implemented, which is something that I am now doing as well. What I've also found, though, from examining this core funding is that it is not going to organisations to pay for services. It is, as I was looking at one case last week, making a contribution towards the organisation's chief executives and finance directors' salary. Now, I think we should be focused, particularly in a time whenever we have scarce resources, on providing funding, scarce funding, limited funding, to organisations to provide services that have defined outcomes. And it is in that context that I will look at this issue. And it is not to say that the work of any of those 67 organisations isn't worthwhile, but I hope that the member and indeed others can appreciate the circumstances we find ourselves in and why I would be looking at it, carrying on the work of predecessors.
Call Mr. Muller for a supplement.
Last Concordia. I suppose what I would say to the Minister is that while we await that review and that reform, his colleague Mr. Girvan and I are united in one aspect of our concerns for ADDNI. It is that the Belfast Trust has referred over 300 children to ADDNI, children who have the ADHD condition. But Belfast Trust doesn't want to pay for the service, and I think maybe there's an area where the Minister might be able to use his good offices with the Belfast Trust to save them. If they want the service and need the service, and they do, then they also have to pay the piper. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, that's a different issue, and I'm happy to take that away, have a look at that, examine that, and whilst it's first and foremost a matter for the Trust, I'm happy to examine it and report back to the member.
Mr. Paul Girvan.